Well, what does this one word here mean to you? Administration. Recently, I've found myself in several environments where people have reminded me of some of the things that I've taught or the way that I've influenced them. So I thought I'd just jump on and just talk about it a little bit. It's something that I've taught about. I've actually written some short books, and I love teaching about it because my real goal is to empower everyone in their gift, and in particular the gift of administration. And it's so easy to be overlooked. And I sometimes talk about my days working in prison when the strategic consultants came in and ended up renaming people like typists and secretaries as administrative assistants or administrative officers. And whilst I understand it, in a strange sort of way, it kind of devalued administration a little bit. Actually, I think that administration spans everything right the way through from sort of the day to day, the typing, the filing, office routines, event details, and such like, right the way through to high end administration. And the truth is that certainly the government of my country, the language is of administrations, of prime ministers, and when a new government is elected in, we talk about the new administration. And it's really therefore important that we understand this gift. You see, I believe that everyone who is working in an area of administration needs to know that they're a first class minister of the gospel of the kingdom. And that's where I'll always begin. Kind of strange sometimes that in the church, you can sometimes find that administrators kind of get left out of the spiritual meetings, and out in the world, the only way to get a really good job as a COO, CFO, CEO is actually have an MBA, a Master's in Business Administration. That's why I called my teaching Mastering Kingdom Administration. But let me just give you three quick principles, and I'll jump on here and see if I can make my pen work. I seem to be having a problem with that. There we go. I'm on it again now. The first is this. It's all about sonship. It must be about sonship first, and sonship, daughtership. And why do I go straight there? Because we see in Isaiah 9:6 and 7 that a child is born, a son is given, and the government is on the shoulders of a son. This is really important, because if we don't have government on the shoulders of a son, we will very easily and quickly revert to a top-down controlling model of organizational leadership. And what we need is an empowering model of organizational leadership. And the son on whose shoulders is government is the most empowering leader that there's ever been. And also what's interesting for me in that verse is it talks about on the throne of David and over his kingdom, which for me is about heaven and earth. The second place I always like to go is this. It's about power. You see, the administrator who doesn't understand the power of God will reduce a move of God to what man can do without God. Let me give you the great example of Moses. He's the greatest transition leader, in my opinion, of the Bible. He led the great transition from slavery to the wilderness, and of course, pointed the people to the promised land. But he stood there at the edge of the Red Sea, and God said, lift up that rod, and the waters parted. I joke, but it's not that funny. But hey, if he hadn't understood the power of God, he'd still be there, waiting for people with boats, those who could swim, those who could dig tunnels, and those who could build bridges. And I see that in lots of situations. We must understand the power of God. The kingdom administrator is a steward of the power of God, but it's also about the presence of God. And I'll go to Moses again for this one, because we see with Moses that God took him to the top of the mountain, and in all of the fire, volcanic action and what have you, God gave him the instructions for building the tabernacle. I sometimes think that God could have sent Moses to the middle of a field and said, hey, go stand there and wave that rod and the tabernacle will appear. But he didn't. In the presence, God revealed to Moses the value that God has for the work of man's hands. What's interesting, of course, here is we see again heaven and earth connected. And we can see that too in the New Testament, where we see Ephesians, an administration suitable to the fullness of times, that is the summing up of all things in Jesus, things in heavens and things on the earth. And we have 1 Corinthians 12:27, the gift of administration, which appears in a verse alongside apostles, healers, and workers of miracles. Once again, connecting heaven to earth. I believe that the gift of administration is available to all of us. It is a natural and a supernatural gift. And it's really important to me that not only do we marry the natural and the supernatural, but we erase the secular sacred divide. And of course, we bridge the us and them. And I believe that we need administration right now more than ever before, true kingdom administration. And I'll talk about some more of that perhaps another time, especially things like divine order and how that enables us to steward the tension of life on earth while we're seated in heavenly places. So the gift of administration is a vital gift. If you don't understand the power of God, you'll reduce a move of God to what man can do without God. But equally, if you don't understand what God does in the presence, you will not understand the value that God has for the work of man's and woman's hands. The gift of administration, it's right there in the Bible. In fact, we wouldn't have a Bible without the gift. Thanks for joining me. I'll talk to you again soon.